Today we are here with Michael. Thank you, Michael, for coming, for having us. Michael is Managing Director at USBC Consulting and Investment. Do you want to say something more about you and your work?
We started the company USBC back in 2008, and the company has been focusing, working with domestic and international companies that are expanding in Silicon Valley. We work with companies from all over the world, Russia, Europe, Asia, and been fairly successful in assisting them opening their offices and running their offices in Silicon Valley.
Thank you. Michael, as an expert on Russian and Silicon Valley cooperation, how would you describe both places? What are the biggest differences?
Well, there are lots of differences, of course, and it's not just between Silicon Valley and Russia. Silicon Valley is a very different place from many places in the world, although there are quite a few countries that have been trying to replicate Silicon Valley, and we'll leave it aside whether it's successful or not successful. But I think the key aspect of Silicon Valley is that the companies that located here really focused on the customer and the actual need and the solution for that need. And the overall strategy of those companies that are located here is disruptive innovation. So coupled with real market and the overall ecosystem that's located here, that what makes Silicon Valley unique.
And on the other hand, what are the unifying elements?
Well, there are lots of different elements, like in Russia, as well as other countries. There's quite a few things like people talent. There are good universities. A lot of companies that are here and successful companies here in Silicon Valley are started by foreigners, whether they're Russians or people from Europe or from Asia. So overall, I think the so-called innovation economy is growing in the world, and we just happen to be here in Silicon Valley, that the place that's leading this innovation.
Thank you. Could you tell us which kind of Russian companies are usually the most successful ones when entering Silicon Valley or other U.S. markets?
I think the companies from all over the world that really come here and don't really position themselves in the so-called ethnic market, and they become American companies and work in a certain way, hire local talent, really try to get entrenched here, they become successful. The ones who try to relocate their business practices from abroad usually fail.
And in general, what would be your advice for a foreign company entering the U.S. market, some market entry strategies, etc.?
Well, it really depends. There are certain companies, and usually those larger companies that come here to the U.S. and enter the market through acquisition. The startups, of course, come with their own product or service that's developed. And again, they really need to get localized here. They need to have U.S. corporate development. They need to set up an entity in the U.S. And we'll leave it at this point now. Not really going to propose any certain jurisdictions or any corporate structures. They need to start having their beta launch. They need to identify the market need. They need to develop that market. They need to validate the customer, monitor it, and coordinate.
And what is usually the key motivation for a company to come up to Silicon Valley?
Well, there are different motivations, of course. There are different people, different founders. Usually what happens is, in many cases, I've seen people landing in SFO and deciding to go to different meetup events to just meet venture capitalists, and that's all good. Sometimes it's just a waste of time also. Really, I think that the companies, whether it's international or foreign company or whether it's U.S. company, they need to understand what kind of problem they're solving and what is really the strategy for that.
Now, let's say as a foreign startup, I look for early stage investment. What should I do first, and what are the next steps?
Well, usually, whether it's U.S. Business angels or micro VCs or larger VCs, usually those investors tend not to invest in foreign companies directly if they're in the U.S. There are, of course, venture funds that are focused on emerging markets or other developed markets. But usually what happens is a foreign company comes over here. If they decide to stay in Silicon Valley or grow out of Silicon Valley, they set up a corporate entity in the U.S. I would recommend not really go through the cookie cutter websites that offer just very simple incorporation, but really get it right from the very beginning and work with corporate attorneys, drafting proper documentation to be really ready to take on investments.
And could you tell us how long does the fundraising process usually take, and what type of documents are usually needed?
Well, it really depends. Sometimes I've seen that founders come here and at the very first meeting they find the right contact, and pretty soon they may get funded. Sometimes it's a fairly lengthy process. Also depends on how much money they're looking for, in what way they want to get funded. Could take several months, maybe half a year.
And what are the KPIs investors usually focus on?
Investors, again, it really depends whether it's an early stage company or if it's a growing company. But usually, for the startups, investors are looking for certain key elements, the team, the product, the defendable intellectual property, the way that the strategy really works, and the way that it's aligned with the vision of those investors. So those are the key elements.
Okay, and once a deal is closed, what does the relationship between foreign founder and a local early stage investor typically entail?
Again, it also depends on the local investors, whether they decide to be hands-on or they just want to take a board seat, or if they just want to be the board observer, or they just totally hands-off and just passive investors. As many investors, there are many relationships.
And last quick question: if you would have to say one word to startups, one piece of advice, what it would be?
I would advise to really think it thoroughly and decide to come to Silicon Valley when you're ready. Try to do as much as possible from your home country, and from your home country, build certain relationships in Silicon Valley, then try to do preliminary validation of your product or service, and then decide to come here, then come over and do everything right from the very beginning.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Thank you
Okay,
for coming.
thanks.